Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Morning.
It's great to be here with J-Mac and LeVar, my favorite LeVar, and that's saying a lot because I really like LeVar Ball.
Yeah.
All right.
Nice little slide.
Started.
Nice little slide early. Yeah.
Oh, the digs begin. Dak Prescott and the Cowboys will start their season taking on Tom Brady and the Bucs. Dallas owner Jerry Jones spoke out about how his team would fare in the NFL's season opener, comparing the matchup to David versus Goliath. There is a cause for concern heading into week one as Dak has been resting during camp after discovering shoulder soreness. The Pro Bowl quarterback told reporters, quote, "I know I'll be fine." LeVar Arrington, how high should we set expectations for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys this season?
I think you got to be reasonable on what your expectations are for this team. I mean, they made some great additions in the offseason, most notably to me, Dan Quinn, in your draft, you addressed the defense, which we know Jerry Jones historically loves to address his offense, even if his defense does need addressing. So I've seen and heard a lot of sound bites coming from Dallas. All have been positive outside of Dak Prescott. I don't put too much on the Dak Prescott injury. And so when I look at this team with Dan Quinn taking over the defense, I think the defense will be much improved. I think that looking at how humble Jerry Jones has come across and even admitting some old stuff, retrospective on him and Jimmy Jones, I thought that was really cool. It was like a moment in time that if you weren't a person who liked Jerry Jones, it made him a likable person in that moment. We know that Ezekiel Elliott has come in. He's weighing 218 pounds, fellas. So he looks like the Ohio State Ezekiel Elliott. So he seems to be motivated and poised to have a really good year. I think you got to temper your expectations just because they haven't given us any reason to think otherwise. But this could be that one time that saying you're bullish on Dallas could pay off for you.
Look, LeVar, I know you don't want to go against your old squad, the Washington football team.
That could be the team
right?
that knocks
You
them
don't
off.
want to give Dallas the division because of that. But just say it. The expectations for the Dallas Cowboys should be, at the very least, winning the NFC least.
Yeah,
because it's still the worst division in football. And that means getting to the playoffs. And I think expectations should be at least winning one game in the playoffs. Here's the thing about the Cowboys, and everything you said, I love what you said about the defense with Dan Quinn, but they also have maybe the weakest schedule in football. They have the fewest amount of teams as opponents that made the playoffs in the entire league. It's 5. 12 of their 17 games will be against teams with losing records last year. And again, we know they have a weak division. So just with that, we should be optimistic about the Cowboys if you're sitting there down there in Texas.
There goes that
and
qualifying.
Dak Prescott,
The great qualifier.
Dak
Superhero
Prescott,
qualifier
no, I'm
to
saying
the rescue.
I'm saying if you're a Cowboys fan, if you're a Cowboys fan, you should be optimistic for one, because the schedule's weak. For two, Dak Prescott has been great against bad teams. That's what he does. He wins fewer than 40% of his games against teams with winning records, but 81% of them against teams 500 or less. So Dak should be good. I'm with you in that I'm not putting too much concern on the shoulder strain. I just hope this thing doesn't linger. He'll be able to play. The thing is it something that kind of lingers throughout the season? Offensively, we know how good they are, and I don't think Dak's going to have to throw for the 370 yards a game he started out throwing for last season. I think, like you said, Ezekiel Elliott is coming back ready to prove something. He's got a chip on his shoulder because the fact is he was bad last year. And a lot of people are excited about Tony Pollard. So I think Zeke is going to come out, have a good year. I'm not saying he'll be the old Zeke, but I think he'll be much better than he was a year ago. I think Tony Pollard obviously is still valuable. The receiving core is great. I'm expecting a jump from C.D. Lamb, who played well last year. Michael Gallup's in a contract year. The question, of course, guys, is on the other side of the ball. You mentioned Dan Quinn as the defensive coordinator. I know you love your boy Micah Parsons. I like him too. I think he's going to help with the linebackers. Leighton Vander Esch is on a contract here. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. So I think Dallas, look, they're not going to be the 85 Bears defensively. But I think they can be a top 12 defense. That's typically what they were before Mike Nolan came in last year, and it just didn't work. So if they get back to being like a top 12 defense or so, then this is a team that, like I said, should be looking at winning a playoff game. And look, from the outside looking in, I think only Tampa Bay and Green Bay are definitively better than the Cowboys in the NFC.
Wow. Broussard, all right, listen, I was going to come in all calm and reserved and say nice things about what LeVar said. But, Broussard, my head's exploding. Well, let's slow down for a moment. We're talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Since 2000, this franchise is 8 games over 500. That is the definition of average, okay? 8 games over 500 in 20 years. 0 trips to the NFC Championship. And you want to guarantee them a playoff win? They need to win a playoff game as an expectation? Like,
not guaranteed,
you guys
but
both
yeah, they
spoke,
need to.
and for some reason, nobody mentioned the offensive line. Maybe LeVar is used to beating up on offensive linemen.
I was waiting on the second go-around.
Listen, okay, fine, fair.
So,
I'll give you that. LeVar, I just want to remind you, their starting tackles last year played a total of 2 games, La'el Collins and Tyron Smith. If they're not healthy, just forget about the season.
True.
I don't care about the schedule. By the way, Vegas mostly agrees with you, Broussard. 7th easiest schedule when you look at the Vegas win totals over-under. Dallas should waltz to the division title. But the problem, again, Ezekiel Elliott coming in slim. Is he really? Or is he coming in really upset about how he was awful last year? You guys are being generous. Tied a career high for fumbles in the last 5 seasons. He has more fumbles than any running back in the league. Okay, Ezekiel Elliott needs a check, and I think Tony Pollard is probably the answer to split carries or maybe get Zeke, to start toting the rock the right way. I'm not as optimistic about the Cowboys. I do think they're the most complete team in the division. Washington, LeVar, does not have a quarterback, okay? No disrespect to Ryan Fitzpatrick. I saw him with my Jets. Every 2 years, it's the same thing. Good year, turns into a pumpkin. Oh, wait a sec, this is the guy from Harvard. We know he's not that good. So I think Dallas should win the division, but the reality, Chris, is historically, Jerry Jones has trotted out an average football team. That's the reality. That's what the numbers say. And LeVar, they've got some problems to fix. Offensive line, defense, which we can get to. By the way, quick note, your guy Micah Parsons opted out last year. I have no problem with that. He hasn't played a real football game since January of 2020. What is that, 18, 19 months? Alden Smith, Randy Gregory on the defensive line? Are they going to even make it to week 1? I'm sorry to go off. Go ahead, LeVar.
Go ahead, Broussard.
Before you go, LeVar, I just want to ask J-Mac a question because he came out so staunch with his chest out.
Yeah, he did.
J-Mac, how many players from 2000, 2001, 2003, how many of those guys are on this team this year?
0.
Oh, okay, thank you.
What about 2007 or 2010 or 2012?
Save the history.
Historically, this is an average franchise over the last 20 years.
2000 doesn't matter, all right?
Yeah, you're right. History doesn't matter. Just toss it out the window. It doesn't mean anything.
I would not put them as the 3rd best team in the NFC, though, Broussard. That's a tad bit, like... That's a little bit of a stretch.
All I'm saying, look, it could be the Rams. It could be the Niners. All I'm saying is definitively, like 2 that I just definitely put ahead of the Cowboys, Tampa Bay and Green Bay. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's even a stretch. I mean, because even those could-be teams are definitively today better than Dallas coming into the year. Now, I'll say this, and this goes back to your point, J-Mac. When you look at the offensive line of this Dallas Cowboys team, this is the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge coming into this season is, will this offensive line accept the challenge in front of them to be what Dallas Cowboy offensive linemen are supposed to be? If they come out with the type of talent that they have and maintain a nasty demeanor and approach, I don't care about the whole health thing. Maybe they're not going to be 100% healthy ever again. But can they come out with a willingness and a commitment to be able to impose their will on other teams? Those are the personalities of the Dallas Cowboy teams that we came to know when they did have those runs in the 2000s and in the 90s, late 90s. You're talking about Larry Allen, Williams, Nate Newton, Stepnowski. You know, I had to go against them guys, man. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you a quick story one time. You want to know how nasty their offensive line was and what you need to have in order to get a guy running the ball like Emmitt Smith ran the ball. Emmitt Smith was one of the greatest running backs of all time, rushing leader of all time. Reason being, though, a largely in part reason is because you had a guy like Larry Allen. Now, they called him L.A. Now, my nickname is L.A.